And here's the checkered flag. Pat Vadan holds it and waves it for Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
I mean, it was obviously a valuable spare, but it was very different, and the car we started the season with.
I was quite hot in the car, and all in all, I feel good.
And so here's poor little Hawk.
So you found something.
Poor little Hawk, which we entered. It was entered, as a third car. I never intended to be, a race there.
Right.
But this car won the last race before Indy.
We've done this before.
I've done this.
The man wearing this helmet is me, and the man wearing that helmet is Mario Andretti.
You're gonna step up right here?
Who took me on a little spin at the legendary Brickyard. Our visit today on 50 Plus Prime. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tony Fama. Mario Andretti. Is there a more recognizable name anywhere? Sure, he's without question one of the greatest race car drivers in history. Some say he's the greatest ever. Andretti is one of those rare names that you know, even if you don't know exactly why you know it. I mean, it's out there in our collective consciousness. Andretti, we've all heard it. Well, let me tell you exactly what that name does mean. Andretti means speed, it means excellence, it means character, it means champion. And for us, it means the next half hour is going to be thought-provoking and a lot of fun.
We're Andretti fans all the way. So.
Mario Andretti retired from IndyCar racing a quarter-century ago.
I'm up here from Mississippi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm up here for training. Thank you, sir.
Enjoy.
Can I get a picture?
Sure.
My friends are not going to believe this. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
But time has not shaken his iconic status among auto racing fans. Now, one half century after winning the Indianapolis 500 in 1969. Can you believe it's 50 years?
Yeah, that crosses my mind often, yeah.
It was a 29-year-old Mario Andretti who won the Indianapolis 500.
Well,
I met with a 79-year-old Andretti to reminisce.
it was a couple of days before qualifying. I know we had a big crash, and with our primary car.
This is film of Andretti test driving that car before the crash.
We had some doubts about the reliability of that car, even though it was very fast. State of the art. The platform was from the turbine cars of the year before, which were very fast, with a new Ford engine. And I think we were loaded for bear as far as speed. All of a sudden, right rear hub sheared, and I had a huge crash in turn 4, which, on top of everything else, I was lucky that I escaped with some burns on my face and so forth. All of a sudden, we're left with a car that we did not intend to race.
This is film of Andretti qualifying in that car, a Bronner Hawk Mark III.
I mean, it was obviously a valuable spare, but it was very different, and the car we started the season with. So I didn't have much time to work it up to speed, but we put it in the front row. So that was a good omen in itself.
The Hawk, the red number 2, closest to your screen, and here in the middle row, had some challenges with high oil temperatures throughout the race. But that good omen had staying power.
It was our day, I was competitive all day. It's a matter of record. I was never worse than third, and then we led over half the race, about 116 or 18 laps, I think.
Andretti won the race. It was a big win for him and his friend Andy Granatelli, the man who introduced STP oil treatment to the world and who owned that amazing Hawk, possibly the most celebrated backup racing car ever.
It was a very auspicious day for many reasons also. Not just the win for myself, but to win for Andy Granatelli, that the STP guru, and knowing how much it meant to him because of the efforts that he had made here in so many years. Indy is the only race that mattered to him. To me, Indy, you know, it matters, but it was one race of the year, and I drove, you know, even that year, drove 37 races in 3 continents. But with Andy, this was it. And even to do that for him was enough of a satisfaction. So there was a lot of emotion, a lot of euphoria in victory lane, which is always good to experience, you know. And Andy could always wear it on his sleeve, you know. He just he didn't hold back.
Mario Andretti was born in Montona, Italy on February 28, 1940. Mario and his twin brother Aldo grew up during World War II.
You sense that something isn't right because there are a lot of emotions around, and you hear, you know, even though you don't really understand it, talking about politics, we're here, there, and divisions and all of that, and fears. I mean, you know, when you had to go to the shelters and all that sort of thing, and I figure, well, you know, I guess this is the way it has to be in life, you know. And then the war ends, and it's supposed to have peace.
With Italy's loss in World War II, Mario and his family, still in Montana, now found themselves living under the control of communist Yugoslavia.
We were trapped inside a communist country, you know, hardline communism under Marshal Tito. And my dad owned actually parts of 7 different farms, which constituted 2,100 acres total, 800 hectares, and he had 7 tenants. And he used to administer that, you know, that was a family holding. All of a sudden, you know, under communism, you don't own anything. State owns everything.
The family was later moved to a refugee camp.
So then they put us in a cattle train, and we didn't know where we were going. You know, we went to Tuscany, and we wound up in this place where we spent 7.5 years in Lucca. It was used to be an old convent, then it was a college, and then it was like a dilapidated, abandoned building, and that's where they put us. There were like estimated about 1,500 people there.
Andretti's father began applying for U.S. visas to join family in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. After 3 years, the visas were granted.
And he said, well, this is a decision time. He says, maybe we go to America for 5 years and then come back. So that was to soften supposedly the blow. But I think that in itself was a blessing that we needed for our lives, because it opened up a whole new horizon and opportunities. And, you know, I personally could not have, you know, even begun to think that, you know, my dream could have come a reality, because I was dreaming already while I was in Italy, you know, to become that's where I became enamored with the sport.
That sport was auto racing, and talk about serendipity. Within 4 days of arriving in Pennsylvania, Mario and his brother Aldo knew they were in the right place.
All of a sudden we looked beyond, you know, the background at the fairgrounds actually, and we see bright lights, and all of a sudden a big roar of engines. And I looked at Aldo, he looked at me, I said, man, we booked. And we followed the noise, and we discovered this half-mile track at the fairgrounds on a dirt track where they were running these modified stock cars. And we peeked through the fence and so forth, and we figured, man, that looks pretty doable, actually. All of a sudden we think, you know what, maybe America won't be so bad after all.
With no racing experience at all, the brothers and their friends built a race car within 2 years. In the late 1950s, Mario began racing, and he was a natural.
I think we were driven by pure passion and desire, you know, burning desire to do it. And that went a long way for us, you know.
And you won. You won in the 1950s, right?
Yeah, I won the first race as well, and then we won actually. I never kept the record how many, but we estimated between 59 and 60. I won about 22 races, you know, between Nazareth, Mahoney Valley, and Flemington, because I won at all the tracks.
With the dawn of the 1960s, Mario Andretti's name in the racing world was about to outgrow his U.S. hometown and place him on the road to race car driving legend. That's when we come back.
Mario Andretti is, I would imagine, exhausted. What is the feeling? Are you physically tired, Mario?
Naturally, I feel like I've done a day's work, believe me. It was quite hot in the car, and all in all, I feel good though. I think this alleviates all the problems.
He's on the backstretch, Sid, racing past us right now. Mario Andretti of Nazareth, Pennsylvania, in the broader Hawk, and he's heading now up toward turn number 3.
In 1964, Mario Andretti entered his first IndyCar event in New Jersey. He finished 11th and won $526.90. But before the end of the decade, Andretti would establish himself as a man to beat. In the 1960s, Mario Andretti participated in a race that would help him become one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. It was a competition between Firestone and Goodyear as they raced to build the best high-performance tires.
And I was part of the Firestone team, which means that I was getting a lot of running, a lot of seat time in the race car testing. And there's nothing more valuable than having that to experience quickly, you know, like the nuances of the dynamics of the car, to learn, you know, the chassis, aerodynamics, and all the things that obviously can give you an advantage if you understand it. And so I was part of all that, and I know how valuable that was.
And boy, did that experience pay off. In 1965, Andretti was IndyCar's Rookie of the Year. He also won the IndyCar Championship that year at age 25, making him the youngest ever to win that award. He won the championship in 1966 and again in 1969, when he also won the Indianapolis 500. But you'll remember his road to that win was a bumpy one, starting first with his Lotus 64, sitting in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum during my visit with Andretti.
This car was very modern in every way. With it was four-wheel drive, which is you know, was something that only the turbines had the year before. It was very successful for the race here because you can really apply power early. You know, our cornering speed increased tremendously. You know, with this car, that's where the lap time came. And when the wheel came off, I destroyed it.
Destroyed, but not out. Andretti found the stand-in, which soon became the stand-out.
And so here's poor little Hawk.
So you found something.
Poor little Hawk, which we entered. It was entered, you know, as a third car. I never intended to be, you know, raced there.
Right.
But this car won the last race before Indy at Hanford, California. You know, so, you know, it was still a valuable car. And only had 2 days to work it up to speed and, you know, get comfortable with it. It felt very different, of course, you know, I expected that. But we still put it in the middle front row, you know, qualified second quick. So, and we were competitive throughout the race, except for, like I said, some other issues with cooling and so forth. But this baby brought us home.
And here's the checkered flag. Pat Vadan holds it and waves it for Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
And Andretti, the only driver in history to win the Indianapolis 500, the Daytona 500, and the Formula One World Championship, was named Driver of the Century by the Associated Press in 1999. Mario Andretti has driven all sorts of cars in all sorts of races around the world, and he's won. He gives much of the credit to his late wife, Deanne. The couple was married for 57 years until Deanne's passing in 2018.
Even as you said, talk about versatility, you know, in '69, my first race of the season was February 1st. My last race of the season was December 31st. And then February 1st, I was in a stock cars in a Motor Trend 500 Riverside. The second race was in South Africa, Formula One. The third race, I was in a midget at the Houston Astrodome. The fourth major race I was in Sebring, and the fifth major I was in Phoenix. Fifth race I was in Phoenix with an IndyCar, you know. So, and that year I raced in 3 continents, you know, and again, so as far as, and I even won Pikes Peak in '69, you know. So satisfaction plus, you know, when you look at that. But you can see not much time for picnicking either, you know, with the family. So, the end.
2 things when we come back. First, in the Andretti family, the apple falls not far from the tree. And second, although Mario was born in 1940, he still drives like it was 1969.
What now? You have won the 500. In the past, some people have said that's the time to hang it up, and others have gone on charging through the years and added further glory. What have you thought about the future now that you've got the big one here in Indianapolis?
Well, all I want to do is keep on racing, that's all. And this is my profession, and I'm still young enough, and I'll keep on racing as long as I possibly can.
We've seen Andretti run midgets, sprint cars, championship cars, and here at the 500. And this undoubtedly has to be the ultimate of his racing career as he streaks down the backstretch through the second turn beautifully.
In the mid-1970s, Mario Andretti decided to compete in Formula One full-time. Now, being the great driver that he is, he won the Formula One championship in 1978. But as the 1980s rolled around, Andretti returned to IndyCar, and he did it with some celebrity buzz and a friendly family rivalry. When Mario Andretti teamed up with actor Paul Newman in the 1980s, he kept right on winning.
I joined a team that I helped form with Paul Newman and Carl Haas, you know, which has turned out to be a fabulous situation. And with that team, I won 18 more IndyCar races, you know, after I came out of Formula One.
Mario Andretti also teamed up with his son Michael in the 1980s, and success accompanied them both.
I had the opportunity to be teammate with my own son Michael, you know, which
in
is
1989, right? First time in history.
Yeah, exactly. Father and son, the same team at this level. And you know that when you look at the record in IndyCars, Michael and I were on podium 15 times. And we finished first and second 5 times. And we were on the front row 10 times.
But prior to Mario and Michael joining the same team, there was that day when father and son were on the same track in a close race for the same prize. Only one Andretti could win. And after all, it was Father's Day.
In '86, we had the closest finish, you know, in IndyCar racing. You know, it was 7 1,000ths of a second in Portland, Oregon. Actually, he was supposed to win because, you know, he was dominating, and I was second, and there was no way that I could catch him. 3 laps to go, my engineer's screaming in my ears. He says, Michael is having some fuel pickup problems. Ooh, man, we know. So we're coming down the stretch, you know, for the drag to the finish line, and his engine just coughed a little bit, and I just I got him by this much. And my wife says, Mario, couldn't you let your son win? I said, are you kidding?
You've done this before.
I've done this.
The man wearing this helmet is me, and the man wearing that helmet is Mario Andretti,
You're gonna step up right here.
who took me on a little spin at the legendary Brickyard.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen.
I was finished at the track.
That was incredible. Thank you very much.
But at age 79, Mario Andretti had a few more hours to go with fans
Thank you, Mario. Thank you so much.
who wanted to feel a 180-mile-per-hour surge, sitting right behind one of the greatest race car drivers in history. One day earlier, we took one last look at the replica of that famous backup Hawk that Andretti drove to win the 1969 500-mile race. Do you want to get back in that and drive it again?
I don't know if it'll start.
Pleasure to meet you.
My
Really.
pleasure.
When I was researching Mario Andretti's career and preparing for this broadcast, at one point my eyes glazed over. I mean, he's won so many different types of races and different types of cars around the world that it's just incredible. After a while, I just couldn't absorb any more information. In wrapping up today, here's one more accomplishment for this great competitor. Mario Andretti is the only driver in history to win Driver of the Year honors in 3 decades. He did that in 1969, 1978, and 1984. That's our program for today. This is 50 Plus Prime. I'm Tony Fama. Thank you for joining us.
Mario Andretti, the winner of the 500. You've got one more tour to take on the track. They've got the convertibles standing by, the Camaro to award you, and he will be making a sweep of the track.
You know, when you're in Formula One, it's just truly international. So every race is in a different country. Now, as a driver, it's today, it's a big feather in your cap if you can win your own country's Grand Prix. In '77, I won Long Beach, which is my home country, and I also won Italy, which is my native. You know, so how sweet is that? I mean, the cup runneth over.